Within the Grand Theft Auto franchise, GTA Vice City stands out as the most unique, special, and potentially even most influential game. Now these are big words and claims. After all, San Andreas and especially GTA 5 had such astronomical success that they ended up making more money than the entire Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, not to mention their impact on pop culture and the gaming industry in general. And yet, despite Vice City selling less copies than San Andreas and GTA 5, it is easily the most influential and important title within the series. Its impact can be felt even today, 20 years later, which is absolutely insane. Just think about this for a moment. Vice City is 2 decades old. The 80s were as close in memory to the time when Vice City was released as Vice City is to us now. The way I see it, without Vice City, the franchise would have never been able to take off the way it did and get immortalized in the gaming world and in the media industry. GTA is the best-selling entertainment medium of all time as of now, not just in gaming, but in general. It generated more money than even the most expensive movies such as Titanic or Avatar. All this comes back to this game. The franchise laid its modern 3D ground with GTA 3, a highly successful and influential game. It laid the groundwork for everything that would come next. But what caused the series to explode was Vice City. The later games such as San Andreas, GTA 4 or 5 all had way more features and interactivity, and they all are legendary in their own right. But Vice City is special and unique in ways that no other GTA game so far managed to be. It is also the only game that takes place in the 80s and is known to have the best soundtrack out of all of them. Right now, there is a heavy wave of 80s nostalgia going on. Movies, TV shows, art, music, so much of it is currently either strongly influenced by the 80s or a remake of something. There's a reason why so many movie posters or songs feature strong neon colors and why genres such as outrun or synthwave are so popular and on the rise. However, back when Vice City came out, none of this was anywhere near as strong or noticeable. Sure, some nostalgia existed and manifested itself in the media, but it was relatively minor. Vice City changed all of that. It is the primary reason why there is currently such a strong obsession with the 80s. You can see it not just in the TV shows and cinema movies coming out. It's also noticeable on social media such as YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Songs such as Out of Touch by Hall & Oates keep trending for weeks if not months, and there's thousands of 80s nostalgia dedicated profiles and accounts. And these things are just part of a massive wave. GTA Vice City was the first game to portray and most importantly capture the essence of the 80s in such a detailed and massive way. I didn't grow up in that decade, nor did I ever experience it. All I know about it is what I've seen from movies, shows, art, photography, and stories of my parents. And yet when I play Vice City, I feel like I went back in time. Like I managed to go back into the past with the help of Doc Brown and his DeLorean. I understand that this game is a parody of America and the 80s and that everything here is over the top, but honestly, I'd say that this is actually the most 80s thing ever. It's exactly why Vice City is faithful to the era, because it is the type of game that would have existed back then too if they had the technology. Driving down the neon lit streets is an amazing experience because chances are your car is currently playing one of the hundreds of hair metal or new wave songs. The buildings look authentic, the cars are all inspired by real life brands and their fitting decade models, and that's how they feel and sound. Stealing and driving a Daytona Spider or Ferrari while you're being chased by cops is one of the coolest experiences you can have playing a game. Rockstar Games put a lot of attention to detail into this, like they always do. There's really no other developer out there who puts this amount of effort and dedication into their games. And I'm not trying to dump on other games. There's a lot lot of titles that I love and hold dearly that had insane details and love poured into them by their developers. But Rockstar Games does things differently. It's interesting because what they do is both obvious and very subtle. For example, pointing a gun at people will cause a panicked reaction by most of them. Some will scream, some will run away, and some won't react at all, probably thinking you're just bluffing. Now, such a reaction is obvious, isn't it? In the real world, you'll likely react the same. But a lot of games don't have that and certainly didn't have such reactions by their NPCs back in 2002. The GTA franchise and Vice City in particular made other game developers strive for more realism in their games, which in turn gave us amazing titles such as Mafia 1 and 2 that are also filled with lots of attention to detail. When you shoot someone, eventually chalk lines will appear around their body and the spot where it was lying. My point was that Rockstar Games brought the 80s back to life with Vice City in a way that no other game to this day, 20 years later, managed to do. I genuinely don't know a single game after Vice City that had such a detailed representation of the 1980s. There were some that were sort of inspired by the decade, such as Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. There's games such as Far Cry Blood Dragon or Retrowave the game, but they are more like subgenres dedicated to certain movies inspired aspects of the 80s and don't really portray the 80s in a realistic way. Vice City might be a parody and over the top, but the world itself, the radio, the cars, the buildings, the themes and aesthetic are as faithful as a game coming out in 2002 could be. How could you talk about Vice City without mentioning its incredible aesthetic and atmosphere? Everything I mentioned so far is important and definitely had an impact on this game and the future of the franchise and gaming industry in general. However, the most important aspect of Vice City and what really sells this game and makes it so unique is its aesthetic. The cars are colorful and a lot more stylish compared to GTA 3. The same can be said about the NPCs walking the streets. Depending on the neighborhood you're in, you will see different types of people and vehicles. If you're in the Ocean Beach area, the cars and pedestrians will be more luxurious and rich. You'll see more Ferrari or Bugatti inspired cars as opposed to the poorer and cheaper ones in the downtown or industrial area. Vice City is a very colorful game. Being this colorful, it manages to capture the spirit of the 80s and Miami perfectly. Even the weapon icons are heavily stylized and a mix between purple, yellow, green and orange colors. Same goes for your health, time and money status. Walking down Ocean Beach or any street will give you the feeling of experiencing a beautiful work of art. This game brings an entire decade to life and interestingly did to modern pop culture what Miami Vice did to the 80s. The reason there even is such a thing as Stranger Things should in large parts be attributed to Vice City because it brought the 80s and all the glam of that decade back into the mainstream. Driving down the neon-lit streets at night while listening to In the Air Tonight or Self-Control or Billie Jean is an experience that no other game will give you. It makes you feel like Tony Montana or Sonny Crockett. If you thought that the movie Drive popularized the night drive experience or aesthetic, then you're wrong. It was Vice City. Drive itself took almost all of its atmosphere and aesthetic from this game to the point of it feeling like a movie about a GTA character. No GTA movies exist, but Drive is probably the closest thing, at least to a Vice City inspired modern movie. Even the poster of Drive has similarities with this game. The Vaporwave, Synthwave and Outrun genres base their music and art heavily on Vice City. Half the art or album covers in these genres feature either imagery from the game or some kind of reference to it. In particular, the Vice City font seems to be most popular. The entire game plays like it was recorded on a VHS tape. You can't shake the feeling like you're seeing a heavily stylized 80s movie or experiencing nostalgia in its purest form. This game is nostalgia done right. The phenomenon of fake nostalgia has been around for a long time, but this game had a massive impact on young gamers back then and now, and how they view the decade and its music in particular. A lot of us never got to experience the 80s. I'm only 25 and still, whenever I watch a movie or listen to music from back then, I get this weird nostalgic feeling, like somehow I experienced it despite this not being the case. Vice City had a massive impact on me and my taste in music and my love for retro aesthetics. Whenever I hear songs by Hall & Oates or Michael Jackson, I instantly think back to my time playing this game as a kid, because that's where I first heard this music. Rockstar Games did something incredibly genius here, because even if you hate the story or gameplay, you will find yourself playing longer than you intended, because as soon as a certain song on Flash FM or V-Rock starts playing, you catch yourself driving around the map, aimlessly or simply avoiding your destination because you want to finish listening to the amazing music this game has. But probably the memory that most gamers have is the moment you first get to drive a car in Vice City. As soon as you enter, the radio starts playing Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, followed by Laura Branigan's Self-Control, two of the most iconic songs from the 80s. This moment is like a hook. You realize that this game is different from others. This is not your standard open world. It's an experience like few others, if any, can offer. In fact, even to this day, you can find thousands of videos with people simply driving around the map while the radio is playing Michael Jackson or Foreigner. And these videos get massive views and lots of comments by people remembering their childhood experience with Vice City. It's a cultural phenomenon that set new standards. This goes so far as to even musicians such as The Weeknd saying that he was heavily inspired by Vice City and tried to base his sound and aesthetic around this game. According to him, it opened his eyes to 80s music when he was a kid playing it. Later GTA games would also have great soundtracks, but none of them managed to recapture the magic this game had. It is generally agreed upon that Vice City had the best soundtrack and radio of the entire franchise, and it will be interesting to see if GTA 6 will be able to recapture some of this magic as it's set in the same location. This game is full of pop culture references and Easter eggs. The GTA franchise is known for this, and it might not seem like anything special in this case, but back when Vice City got released, this was not done by a lot of games, and the GTA games weren't known for it either. Sure, GTA 3 laid the foundation for what would come later and already had plenty of Easter eggs and movie references, but it was Vice City that revolutionized this and caused the franchise to explode. Playing Vice City, you will quickly notice that the entire game is heavily inspired by movies and shows such as Scarface, Carlito's Way, or Miami Vice. These are the most prominent ones, but of course there's hundreds of references to other movies such as Beverly Hills Cop or Rambo. It would take hours to break down all the inspirations that can be found in Vice City, but really, Scarface and Miami Vice are the most prominent ones. Their prominence and influence on Vice City is so strong that not only are there almost one-to-one copies of locations from those movies that you can find in-game, it's also in the name and entire atmosphere and vibe of the game. Vice City is not called like that randomly. It's clearly a nod to Miami Vice, a TV show that had massive influence on the 80s and is one of, if not the most important crime drama ever made. This influence has clearly inspired Vice City to a point where the game probably would not have existed without Miami Vice. The entire vibe and atmosphere of this game is in large parts based on Miami Vice. The suits Tommy can wear, the way pedestrians look, such as that one NPC that is a direct visual copy of a character from the TV show. The dynamic between Tommy and Lance is very similar to the one between Crockett and Tubbs, and it's interesting to note that the voice actor of Lance is Philip Michael Thomas, the same guy who played Ricardo Tubbs on Miami Vice. This is not a coincidence. Rockstar Games did this on purpose because this game is almost like a spiritual successor to that TV show. The entire setting of Vice City is heavily inspired by Miami Vice to the point where if you get a 3-star wanted level, you'll see a white Ferrari pull up with two detectives clearly dressed like Crockett and Tubbs. But of course, it would be crazy not to mention the heavy impact Scarface had. Aside from the story having a lot of similarities and Tommy Vercetti having a similar rise to power as Tony Montana, there are locations and interiors taken straight from the movie. For example, you can find an apartment close to Ocean Beach that looks very similar to the one in the famous chainsaw scene from Scarface. In fact, inside of this apartment is a bathroom with a bathtub full of blood and a chainsaw that you can pick up and use. Another one is the mansion of Ricardo Diaz, which is clearly modeled after the one Tony Montana owned. In fact, the main office and security room looks almost exactly like the one from Scarface. These things might be standard practice today, 20 years later, but the only reason that's the case is because of Vice City and how masterfully Rockstar Games integrated these Easter eggs and references. They give the game a charm that even today few games manage to capture despite trying. In fact, the GTA franchise would have never taken off or turned into what it is now had Vice City not been full of these things and tried to tell a mostly grounded crime story, but in a video game format. This game is the reason why people slowly started taking gaming and video games as a medium more seriously, because at that point it was still considered to be childish and something children or teenagers do, but certainly not a thing to be taken seriously or capable of telling a movie-like story. Which is funny because on one hand, GTA was being heavily criticized for being too violent and not something children or teenagers should play, but then the same people would also ridicule it for being childish. Most people didn't even consider video games to be art, an opinion that has significantly died down ever since, although these people still exist for some reason. When Vice City invited famous AAA actors such as Burt Reynolds, Dennis Hopper, or Ray Liotta to voice the characters of the game, it came as a surprise and was unexpected. These were massive stars, and now you were hearing them in this thing that was supposedly only for children or teenagers. Well, it raised the curiosity level very high, and people started wondering what kind of story this game must have if it has such high-profile actors lended their voices. One thing led to another, and now 2 decades later, we still consider Vice City to be one of the most important and legendary games ever made.